Dadabhai Nauroji, written by Santosh Mathew. History often rewards those who speak for the voiceless, even when their words are unwelcome. In his 200th birth anniversary year, Dadabhai Nauroji stands tall not merely as a nationalist icon but as a polymath, thinker, parliamentarian, social reformer, and above all, the conscience keeper of colonial India. If today Shashi Tharoor reminds the world that India once contributed nearly a quarter of global GDP in the 18th century, it was Nauroji who, more than 150 years ago, laid the intellectual foundation for this argument. His drain of wealth theory revealed how Britain's prosperity was being built on India's ruin. It was not merely economics, it was a manifesto of awakening for a nation yet to be politically mobilized. Born on 4th September 1825 in a modest Parsi family in Bombay, Dadabhai Nauroji's early life embodied the fusion of tradition and reform. Married at the tender age of 11, he nevertheless became a pioneer of modern education and social progress. He excelled in mathematics at Elphinstone College and soon became one of its first Indian professors, a rare feat in colonial India where academic chairs were jealously guarded by Europeans. Nauroji was not just a man of letters, he was an institution builder. In the year 1851, he founded the Gujarati fortnightly The Truth Teller in the aftermath of communal unrest in Bombay to address Parsi social reform and the grievances of the middle and poor classes. The paper also became a platform for his wider reformist ideas, including women's education and religious reform, and soon emerged as one of the most widely circulated newspapers in Western India, giving Nauroji a powerful public voice. His was a reformist mind as much as a nationalist one. His ventures in London demonstrated his global outlook. He co-founded Kama and Company and later Nauroji and Company, becoming one of the earliest Indian entrepreneurs in Britain. For him, commerce was not merely about profit. It was about building bridges, establishing credibility, and breaking stereotypes of Indian inferiority. His business pursuits gave him entry into British circles, which he would later use as platforms to articulate the Indian cause. Nauroji's career was remarkably versatile. He briefly served as Diwan of Baroda, where he proved his administrative acumen. In Bombay, he was elected as a municipal councillor and later as a member of the Bombay Legislative Council. These experiences honed his understanding of governance and exposed him to the structural injustices of colonial rule. But it was in London that Nauroji made his greatest impact. Through his writings in journals like the Voice of India and the Friend of India, and his lectures such as The Wants and Means of India in the year 1870, he educated not only Indians but also the British public about the economic exploitation of India. His meticulous use of statistics, budgets, and trade data gave his arguments an irrefutable credibility. Nauroji's most enduring contribution remains his drain of wealth theory. He argued that India's poverty was not the result of laziness or cultural backwardness, as colonial propaganda suggested, but the systemic siphoning of wealth by the British. Through home charges, excessive military expenditure, and the repatriation of salaries of British officials, wealth that should have stayed in India was enriching England. His landmark book, Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, published in the year 1901, crystallized these arguments. The very title was an indictment. Colonialism was not just oppressive, it was un-British, violating the very ideals of fairness and justice the empire claimed to uphold. For a colonized people, this was a revolutionary assertion that poverty was political and that freedom was economic as much as political. Nauroji was not merely an economist, he was a political organizer. As one of the founders of the Indian National Congress in the year 1885 and later its second president in 1886, he provided the nascent body with intellectual credibility and moral leadership. It was Nauroji who first articulated the demands for Swaraj, that is, self rule, long before it became the battle cry of Gandhi and Tilak. His presidential addresses to the Congress were not fiery slogans but carefully reasoned appeals, balancing moderation with national pride. The fact that he was often called the grand old man of India was not only because of his age, but because of his fatherly guidance to the nationalist movement. Nauroji broke barriers that no Indian before him had ever dared to dream of. In the year 1892, he was elected to the British House of Commons as the Liberal Party MP for Central Finsbury, making him the first non European ever elected to Parliament. It was a symbolic victory for India, proof that an Indian voice could be heard in the very citadel of imperial power. In the House, he tirelessly raised the Indian question on poverty, on governance, on economic injustice. His presence itself was a rebuke to colonial arrogance. While his political career in Britain was brief, its impact was profound. He gave confidence to Indians that they could match the English on their own ground. From the Voice of India to the Indian Spectator, from the wants and means of India to poverty and un-British rule, Nauroji's writings created an intellectual scaffolding for the freedom movement. They injected nationalism into the bloodstream of educated Indians, transforming passive discontent into active demand. Even British thinkers were forced to acknowledge his erudition. John Bright, William Gladstone, and other leaders of liberal politics interacted with him. His economic critique inspired a generation of Indian leaders, Gokhale, Ranade, and even Gandhi, who once described Nauroji as a father figure. Nauroji's vision was not limited to politics and economics. He advocated women's education, campaigned against child marriage, and opposed rigid caste barriers. For him, national progress was impossible without social progress. His reformism was grounded in his Zoroastrian ethics of truth and justice. He believed in combining tradition with modernity, arguing that Indians must embrace education, rationalism, and civic responsibility while retaining their cultural identity. In this sense, he was both a nationalist and a cosmopolitan. What makes Nauroji remarkable even today is the sheer range of his pursuits. He was an academic, a businessman, a legislator, a journalist, a reformer, a parliamentarian, and a nationalist thinker. He could move from lecturing on mathematics to debating imperial finance in Westminster, from editing a vernacular newspaper to advising reformist movements. Few Indians before or after him embodied such polymathy. In an age of specialization, Nauroji reminds us of the power of being a journalist or connecting economics to politics, social reform to nationalism, and ideas to action. 2 centuries after his birth, Nauroji's relevance has only grown. When global discussions on reparations, colonial responsibility, and historical injustice are taking place, his drain theory stands vindicated. The world now recognizes, as Tharoor recently iterated, that India once accounted for a quarter of the world's wealth before colonial plunder. Nauroji saw it, wrote it, and fought against it when it was unfashionable to do so. In a sense, the Indian freedom movement had three phases: the moderate awakening of Nauroji, the assertive nationalism of Tilak, and the mass mobilization of Gandhi. Without Nauroji's groundwork, the latter phases would not have found their intellectual legitimacy. Nauroji at 200 years is not merely an occasion for nostalgia. It is a reminder of how one man's pen shook an empire, how meticulous reasoning can challenge brute power, and how a life lived with integrity can inspire generations. The grand old man of India lived to the age of 91, passing away in 1917, a decade before India's political struggle would enter its mass phase. Yet, his voice continues to echo. In the cries for justice, in the debates on economic fairness, and in the unfinished conversations about colonial responsibility. Thanks for listening. Now, some word power. Through home charges, excessive military expenditure, and the repatriation of salaries of British officials, wealth that should have stayed in India was enriching England. Repatriation in repatriation means the sending of money back to one's own country. His economic critique inspired a generation of Indian leaders. CRATAQUG critique means a detailed analysis and assessment of something. Nauroji stands tall not merely as a nationalist icon but as a polymath. Polymath. Polymath means a person of wide knowledge or learning. 2 centuries after his birth, Navroji's relevance has only grown. When global discussions on reparations, REPJRATAVN, reparation means payment for harm or damage. The world now recognizes, as Tharoor recently iterated, ITGRET, iterate means utter repeatedly. Thank you very much.